Namaste. Venus is debilitated in Virgo. However, Venus is debilitated in Virgo only when it falls in the Uttara and Hasta Nakshatra. Uttara and Hasta, if your Venus is in Uttara or Hasta Nakshatra, only then your Venus is weak, your Venus is debilitated. However, if your Venus falls in Chitra Nakshatra, then your Venus is not debilitated. You should understand that Chitra is the most glamorous nakshatra. It shines. The symbol of Chitra Nakshatra is a shining jewel. And so, a planet like Venus never falls or never debilitates in Chitra Nakshatra. The first two padas of Chitra Nakshatra falls in Virgo sign, whereas the last two padas fall in Libra sign. So whether it is Virgo or Libra, if your Venus is falling in Chitra Nakshatra, then your Venus is not debilitated. Now let us understand that whether debilitated planet is good or bad. A debilitated planet is weak, it is not bad. It is better to have less money than to have black money. Similarly, it is better to have a weak planet than to have a malefic or an afflicted planet. So if your Venus is in Virgo, in Uttara or in Hasta Nakshatra, in Virgo sign, then it is okay, as long as your Venus is not afflicted by Mars, Rahu or Ketu. Always remember, just because your Venus is in Uttara or Hasta Nakshatra in Virgo sign, it doesn't mean that you will always get negative results. It all depends on the nakshatra lord of your Venus, that is Sun or Moon placement. It all depends on the placement of Mercury, since Mercury is the lord of Virgo. So if Mercury, Sun and Moon, all three are placed in a bad or in a house that is not suitable for your growth, then this Virgo Venus will cause troubles. Otherwise, if it is in Virgo, in Uttara or Hasta Nakshatra, and Moon, Sun, Mercury are in good placement, then this Virgo Venus will not at all provide you with negative results. But the larger question is, which a young man had asked few days ago, that how to strengthen my weak Venus. When you ask questions like this, it means that you want to interfere in the flow of your life. And when you start interfering, you create yet another circle of misery for yourself. That is why it is said that let life flow, don't interfere. You should never try to interfere in the flow of your life. You should never try to manipulate, because if a certain thing is weak, it is meant to be weak. If you try to strengthen it, you don't know what will happen. But people try to manipulate. And then, as Neem Karoli Baba says, that if you try to manipulate, if you try to become God, then one day it will boomerang on you. And then you will start suffering. I have answered this question, how to strengthen my weak Venus. Please listen to this podcast. Who knows, some of you may understand the language and the message that I want to convey. So let's begin. Existence provides you with exactly that which is in your interest, in your favor. To existence, there is nothing such as weak or strong. It is something that the mind goes on judging, whereas the existence cannot judge. Because if the existence goes on judging, then when will it have the time to love, to nurture, to provide? People fall in the trap of strengthening the planets, and then they also are fooled by those who make them believe that planets can be strengthened. If that was the case, if that was the reality, then there are millionaires across this human world who have children who are utterly useless and a great nuisance to their life. How difficult would it be for this rich millionaires and billionaires to buy the best, the most expensive gemstones and strengthen their useless kids who do nothing but just enjoy a comfortable life at the cost of their billionaire father or mother. To you and through your question to all my listeners, I want to make it crystal clear that the very idea to strengthen a planet in your horoscope is a futile idea and can be of no help but an entertaining experience, and at times it can also boomerang. To strengthen means trying to interfere with the flow of life. Let life flow. Don't interfere. Only human beings go on interfering by trying to manipulate, and in the process, they lose the whole essence of life, leading them to many miseries, to many difficulties. The great spiritual master Neem Karoli Baba quotes, "It is very difficult to know exactly what good should come out of a particular situation. To attempt to manipulate circumstances so that your idea of good can come about is to let the ego play God, and that, as you know, can and does backfire. The very idea or thought that my Venus or my Mars or my Jupiter or my Saturn should be strengthened comes because you have some ideal of how it should be. And that is the problem. That is the whole problem. That people are always trying to see how it should be. People are not happy to go with the flow, and then they start interfering. They forget the fact that God has provided them with perfect measurements that is good for them for their real growth. A weak Venus is good for spiritual growth. Exalted Venus or Venus in its own sign or nakshatra is a hindrance to spiritual growth. Venus is not related to the actual act of sex. Venus is related to sexual organs. The actual act of sex is driven by Mars, and so for spiritual growth, there should be no contact between Mars and Venus. When Mars is with Venus, then the person is 100% sexual, has a strong libido, and also attracts sexual partners. You always attract that which is within you. And so, what is good for what is best is decided by the Almighty God. For a man who is chosen by God, God would definitely not want him to have a strong Venus or any connection between Mars and Venus in his birth chart. So if you ask me, then all those men and women who have a weak Venus, Virgo Venus, are men who are chosen by God. God chooses first, then you start feeling a hunger for him. Men cannot choose God. It is God who chooses men. Having a weak Venus, a Virgo Venus, is perfectly fine. It is a signal that God has something far better for you. From spiritual growth perspective, weak Venus is okay, but what is not okay is when Venus is with Mars or with Rahu. Such men or women's sexuality is too much fired up and they look very hot and appealing, and their whole world is different than those who are simple, sweet and supple with a weak Venus. Nothing in this world can be labeled as good or bad because it is all situational. For sex, a beautiful, sexy woman is always desirable. There is absolutely nothing wrong to have this expectation as long as you are living a material life. For spirituality, no partner is desirable. You are happy to be alone. And only a spiritual man or a spiritual woman can truly understand the essence of love, because only a spiritual being can learn how to be alone. The first lesson of love is to learn how to be alone. The greatest yogis have absolutely no planets in exaltation, because the whole essence of attaining spirituality is to let all planets fade away. And when there are absolutely no planets, then the self speaks. That is the stage of a true yogi. Long back, I had met a great yogi, and he was such a simple man. He had traveled the whole world, had met many presidents and many queens and kings, and yet he was so humble. And one day, when I was present in his omnipresence, one astrologer came and asked, "Can I see your birth chart to see where are your planets placed?" And the great yogi looked into his eyes and said, "Now there are no planets left. They all have gone. Now there is nothing." How deep is this answer? How beautiful is this answer? So much so is to this answer only a meditative being can understand. Only a man of heart can relate to these beautiful words of the Master. The spiritual journey is towards nothingness. When all planets have gone, when there is absolutely no say of any planets, then you have truly arrived. Then you have become the Buddha. Then you have gone beyond. The material men and women are behind strengthening the planets. The spiritual men and women are simply taking the efforts to drop all the planets one by one and reach towards the Shunya, the nothingness, the beyond. Remember, everything comes from nothingness and goes back to nothingness. Nothingness is the basis of existence. It all depends on what you are. It all depends on what is the path that you have chosen. If your chosen path is the path of self-realization, if your chosen path is of spirituality, then you have to simply live with your weak Venus, because that is in your favor, in your best interest. If your chosen path is the path of seeking pleasures of body, even then you have to learn to live by accepting the fact that God wants you to have limited pleasures of body, because God doesn't want you to get dragged into too much sex and too much of indulgence in pleasure seeking activities, because God has in store for you something that is superior, something that is of higher altitudes. It is said that when Jesus was washing the feet of Peter, Jesus said, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but you will understand later." The weak planets that you or anyone who is listening to this podcast has need to realize that this is the part of the process, the plan through which God wants you to go through, because God knows what is best for you. Weak Venus is good, afflicted Venus is bad. Understand the difference. Savor the difference. Just a Venus placed alone in Virgo with absolutely no negative aspects on it is a good sign. But a Venus associated or afflicted with Mars, Rahu, Ketu is not a good sign, because it impacts the sexual behavior. The person is either too much into sex, thinking always about sex, or does sex not by the sexual organs but by using the finger, to which in Indian context we address as Hasta Maithun, meaning penetrating the vagina by using the finger and not the penis. So many such instances happen. Long back, a woman had come and she looked very upset. When asked, she said that her husband always does sex by using his finger and not his penis. Sex is not bad, but it becomes bad when Venus is afflicted by Rahu or Mars in a negative way. Even for Venus Rahu or Venus Mars, there is a positive angle just the way there is a negative angle. You cannot label anything, because as mentioned before, everything is situational, and with just a change in placement, many factors change for good or bad. Human beings consider themselves as intelligent, but before God, their intelligence cannot work. The children are always children before the Father who created them. And that is why Albert Einstein says, before God, we are all equally wise and equally foolish. Probably Albert Einstein is the only scientist who believed in God. He quotes, "The more I study science, the more I believe in God." Those who try to manipulate matters of life are not, in the true sense, believers of God. A true God believer would never try to strengthen or weaken or do any kind of manipulation with what God has provided him with. Trust is accepting what God sends into your life, whether you understand it or not. A woman said, "My lover left me. He dumped me. He simply left me forever. He didn't even bother to let me know that he is breaking up with me." Situations change, and a man or woman has absolutely no control over it. They try many ways to manipulate. Some try black magic. Some feel that the black magician is God and he can do anything under the sky. In reality, God is laughing up in the sky, because the black magician starts feeling as if he has become the God. It is like a child, a foolish child, who starts believing that he has become the father. Many people go to black magicians and many have manipulated matters of their life by using such manipulative black magic spells. But in the end, they have suffered tremendously, so much so that is beyond the power of words to express the terrible state of their life that they eventually end up with. A young man once paid 40,000 Indian rupees to a black magician. His sister's Venus was weak. Marriage was not happening. And so he paid the money to the black magician. The black magician performed his magic. Within 4 months, his sister got married. Everybody was happy. They all thought how smart they were, how smartly they had manipulated the script written by God. And God was watching. God was smiling because God knows everything. Exactly after 6 months, his sister got divorced. No matter how much you try to manipulate using all kind of black magic or voodoo spells, you cannot become God. You cannot become the writer. The writer is God, and when God writes, it cannot be erased. If you try to erase, then you will eventually find yourself in a mess, a deep mess. But who wants to listen? Life should be lived by accepting all that God provides you with a sense of gratitude. A man becomes a Buddha the moment he accepts all that life brings with gratitude. People are not willing to accept. The questioner is also not willing to accept the fact that his Venus is weak. What is wrong in accepting? But people cannot understand, and because they cannot understand, they go on rejecting, they go on rebelling, they forget the fact that they can progress only when they go with the flow and not against the flow. Once you learn to accept the weak planets in your chart, life starts changing for good. And this is a fact, a proven fact. The beauty of acceptance is beyond the power of expression. Someday, you all should read my book, Beauty of Acceptance. Interestingly, weak planets bring abundance of money, whereas exalted planets bring abundance of good qualities, guna, within the individual. The scholars project Lord Rama horoscope with all planets in exalted state. Now tell me, what good did they did for Rama? Because half of his life went in the jungles and in fighting the army of Ravana. So exalted planets have nothing to do with luxuries and money, but has more to do with qualities, guna. Exalted planets means exalted superior qualities, superior values, superior principles. In today's age, the more corrupt you are, the more money you have. What a strange mathematics it is, but that is the reality of this Kali Yuga. So weak Venus often brings more money. Many men and women who have Virgo Venus are millionaires. Many well-known wealthy men and women are born with Virgo Venus. Virgo Venus is not always weak Venus. Love suffers because of weak Venus, but life is like a seesaw. If at one end love is at the downside, then money is at the upside. And that is how the loss is squared up. God offers more money and less love. The reason why seesaw has 2 seats is because that way there is always someone to bring you up when you go down. When weak Venus takes you down on the love angle, on the other side, there is always money to bring you upside. So, weak Venus is not as bad as it is being framed by the ignorant society. When you have weak Venus, all you have to do is to take the initiative to love others. If you wait for love to flow towards you, then you will always be in the waiting list. If you really want love, if you really seek love, if you really want happiness, then you have to take the first step. Be a reflection of what you would like to receive. If you want love, give love. If you want truth, be truthful. If you want respect, give respect. What you give out will return to you. Whatever you do to others, it comes back to you multiplied. There are many men and women who do many terrible things behind the curtains. They think nobody is watching them, but they forget the law of the universe, that whatever you do, secretly or openly, comes back to you, because where else will it go? Whatever you throw on others comes back to you. So be aware of your actions when you throw a beautiful rose, so that many roses may fall back on you, showering with love and joy. The only reason for Venus falling in Virgo sign is the contrasting nature. The nature of Virgo sign is pure Mercurian, meaning head, logic, analysis, micromanaging, whereas the nature of beautiful Venus is totally illogical. Venus, that is love, knows no logic, no conditions, no head. When you love, you simply love. And so, when love, that is Venus, is in a dry sign, that is in Virgo, you can imagine the discomfort of Venus. It is like a woman full of life, full of energy, suddenly finding herself in a dry, arid, desert land. But if the weather is good, meaning if other placements are supportive, then the deserts also appear beautiful. So there is absolutely no need to strengthen weak Venus, because what God does is always in your interest. The Father knows what is best for His child. The message that I want to give to all my listeners and followers is that please do not get trapped or depressed when anybody tells you that you have a weak planet, because behind that weakness there is a beautiful story that God has scripted and which is in your interest. Always remember, God writes the story of our life, but while writing the story at many occasions, just the way a writer has choices to make, similarly God also has choices to make. But the good thing about God is that God lets us make the choice. So when He is writing that on a beautiful evening you met a beautiful girl, He is leaving the choice with you, whether you want to make her your partner or whether you want someone else. If you select her, the story goes ahead with marriage or with an intense relationship. If you just have a cup of coffee with her and some nice chit chat and that's all, then the story takes a different turn. She is dropped and someone else is standing, waiting for you at the other end. So while writing the story of your life, God gives us a choice to make at every moment of our life. And it is the choice that you make goes on shaping your destiny. Today, whatever you are, whatever I am, is because of the choices that we made in our past lives. Now, your next question must be, how can we make the right choice? And the answer is consciousness. The greater the consciousness, the greater is the quality of choice. A man of awareness will make the right choice. He will not fall for the appearances. He will be very careful, very cautious, and very patient until he takes the first step towards selecting the partner of his life. But someone who simply falls for the looks, the appearances will simply miss and make wrong choices. Temptations are of the mind, and the mind is very quick to give in because the mind is highly sexual by nature. Those who have been following me closely are aware of the fact that I have been sharing from the very beginning that moon, that is mind, is highly sexual by nature. It is said that certain sages have referred to the 27 nakshatras as 27 wives of the moon. Managing one wife is so difficult, and 27 wives? You can now imagine how much sexual and womanizer the moon is by nature. The most beautiful man, the most beautiful woman is the one who simply goes with the flow of life. Remember, once you understand that you grow when you don't interfere in your own life, you will start progressing in the true sense. People and the fake society spread all kind of fake messages. They say that if you don't get married, then you will not attain God. Marriage has absolutely nothing to do with God. Marriage is an institution which is formed on practical reasons. It is not just a sexual union but a union of two families, a proper deal that brings strength to both families. Marriage have been used from the beginning of time by emperors and kings to strengthen their political ambitions and motives. So never mix marriage with love. Marriage is a working relation, while love is an altogether different matter. The great spiritual master Neem Karoli Baba quotes, "It doesn't matter if you are married or not married. It only matters how much you love God." Great saints and yogis always have had a weak Venus because the path they have chosen for many lives after lives is the path of God, path of Jupiter. And so when they are walking on the path of Jupiter, the other path, that is Venus, is bound to be on the weaker side. Jupiter is the guru of the Devatas. Venus is the guru of Asuras. So both are gurus. It is like one is a dawn from Dubai, that is Venus, while the other is the dawn from Rome, that is the Holy Pope. So if you are on your way towards Rome, the connection with the dawn of Dubai is going to be weak. That's natural. So it all depends on which way your journey is on. The path decides what destination you are going to reach. And then there are a few like me, a few like my insightful listeners and followers who simply don't bother about destination. Once you are set on a beautiful path, the path towards the beyond, the higher altitudes of consciousness, then who cares for the destination? If the path be beautiful, let us not ask where it leads. The moment you are set on the path shown by the benevolent master, then you simply start enjoying the journey. And a time comes in your life when the journey becomes the destination. I pray to God that may all my listeners and close followers find their path and enjoy the journey. Because the moment the journey begins, the question of destination never arises. It never can. Remember, the journey, not the destination, matters. When you lose your job, when your lover leaves you alone, when you face many failures in your life, remember, it is all a part of the journey on which you are set. If you are a conscious person, if you are a man of awareness, then you will not look back. Instead, you will continue to walk. Because when you continue to walk with gratitude in your heart, God makes sure that the way ahead starts appearing before you. The question is, are you willing to continue to walk with faith and patience in your heart? If your answer is yes, then watch my words, remember my words. You are going to find the way. You are going to find what you seek. Always remember, what you seek is also seeking you. Love to all my listeners and followers. Remember to meditate every day. Remember to chant every day. Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Jai Sri Ganesha. Jai Guru. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha.